Folks. Did I just ruin my mic? Hold on. There we go. A little bit of A's. Let's get the Minnesota A going back. I am back in Minnesota. I'm staring at snowfall. It's April 1st. It's not an April Fool's joke, and it is snowing right outside my window. You're not gonna be able to see it aggressively, but obviously, because I'm not gonna turn the camera, but you can see a significant amount of snow coming down. And I got here on Sunday. I drove across the country. I drove here from Arizona. As you guys know, you've been following a little bit and watching some of the shows. I was doing all those in the desert. Excuse me. And now I'm in Minnesota. So I'm up north. I'm at one of the northernest parts of the country. And I got here on Saturday night late. I got in late, so I wasn't really I knew it was going to be cold. I lived here for a long time. And then when I settled in the next morning, I woke up and we made a fire with coffee in the morning. It was beautiful. Had a little waffle. What was it? A little waffle. I don't know what they call them. It was a waffle wrapped around breakfast sausage and egg. And it was so incredible. We put some maple syrup on the waffles and just had a little family day here on Sunday. And it snowed the entire day and I loved it. I loved how much it was snowing on that first day I got here because it was it was symbolism of being back in Minnesota. And what's interesting is that I forgot about snow. You live in different parts of the country and you forget that snow even exists. And part of the reason why I've always wanted to live in Arizona or California, it could be I lived in Florida for a bit, but Arizona has always spoke to me and my wife. We got married in Arizona, had our kid in Arizona. I've lived a lot in Arizona, and I've said this a few times in the past. So the proverb, the mountain is for the mind, the ocean is for the body, and the desert is for the soul. And I really believe that. I've had some really profound parts around the world based off of where I'm living. And I think it's just all the connection that we have with nature. And obviously nature changes based off of where we're at and what we're experiencing. So the desert, it's the same every day in the winter, which I really enjoy that. I enjoy waking up every day in the winter, going for a walk, knowing that you can have a hoodie on and shorts and some sandals. And if it gets too hot, you can take the hoodie off, wrap it around you, but it's always going to be nice. And it really sits around that 60 to 75 degree sunny day. You see the mountains, you see a beautiful sunrise, beautiful sunset. I mean, the skies of the desert are just incredible. And it's a really special place to be. Minnesota, on the other hand, I've lived in the north my whole life. I grew up in the north, so I grew up in winter climates, and it's always been. When I was a younger kid, I think I never liked it, even as a kid. I know a lot of people like it, and I have a lot of friends who really do enjoy it. I never enjoyed the winter, even as a little kid. There's obviously things that I enjoyed doing. You'd go out on you'd sled or ski here and there. I didn't start skiing until I was an adult. I do love skiing, but even skiing, you got to be in some serious mountains. There's not many. It's harder to ski here in Minnesota or Michigan like it is in Colorado or go out to. My first time I ever actually skied was in Tahoe, and that's just a different experience than skiing in Minnesota. And so that changes your perspective too. But the cold, I was never able to get behind. I think it's because I was always a baseball player and I was always into summer sports. And that's what I always thought it was when I was a younger kid. And when I got older, it just got more stressful because everything gets harder to do in the winter, right? Grocery shopping's harder, taking your trash out is harder. And there's a lot of things that aren't as convenient that I've always been aware of for my own self. I don't think you have to consider that or not. I've always considered that. So I like the ease of warmth. But then again, now you see Arizona starts getting super hot. I don't like that extreme heat. I've lived in Minnesota a lot. So we moved here for the summer. We'll be here for the summer. And it's one of those things where we were deciding, should we come back in April or come back in May? And one of the things that I felt about coming back in April was I wanted to experience some of the snowfall and see the dead of nature and grow with it a little bit. That's always a really fun part to be in the Midwest, is to watch life grow in front of you through nature. And you watch the budding of the trees, you watch the leaves come to life. You just kind of watch everything turn on and become green. And that's just a beautiful experience. So we got here, I've been, this is my third day here, April 1st, and got here at the end of March, and it's doing what it's doing. It's snowing, and I remember playing baseball in this type of weather back in the day, and just 30-degree weather, and it was always somewhat stressful. But the thing that is really appealing to me, and we talk about this often, and we talked about this in the past with environments, and talked about this with music. We started this with music, and I talked about making your bed and the importance of making your bed, because it's all environment. So another thing that I've always liked about moving, what liked about nomadic lifestyle, is the environmental changes. And I think it's really important to change environment. I know everybody has access to moving or changing, and I know that people don't want to do that, and I think that that's fine. It's just from my point of view, the value in there, because there's a lot of hardship with moving a lot too and being nomadic. But one of the things that I've really learned to appreciate is my chameleonness and my ability to adapt and shift with where I'm at in the country. I haven't lived outside of the country. I've traveled around countries around the world, but never lived there. And I think living is a different scenario where you're actually someplace receiving mail. I've always considered living in a place long enough where you're getting mail is considerable in the position of this is where you live at the time being. And I can already tell how much different my thinking is in under a week, based off of when I was in the desert to when I'm now here in Minnesota. Everything has just gotten quieter instantaneously. It's gotten calmer. There's not as much, you can feel the lifestyle, the pace is a lot slower here than it is in California and in Arizona. There's just a lot going on. When I was in Arizona for a few months just now, it was the waste management was going on. A couple years ago, the Super Bowl was there. And I know Super Bowl was here too, but they pack spring training. What is that? 17 major league clubs in Arizona. So you have people flying in and out for those games the entire spring. You have a lot of activity, and you find there's a lot of traffic, and you find a bunch of people who move in, myself included, move into this pocket of the country, and then at the end everyone moves out. And I almost felt that when I was leaving the other day. When I was leaving at the end of March, I could tell that the community had moved on because there was no more events. The events were starting to slow down, but there's just a lot of activity. It's a huge melting pot because it's a lot of people from all around the country who are going down there for certain events. And events, especially on a national stage, they draw and gather so much attention and so much diversity, which I think is what makes the scale of entertainment so valuable for human behavior, and being able to acknowledge human behavior, see how we react to certain ideas and concepts purely from entertainment. But then when you come up here, and I have a wetland that surrounds my front yard, and then a hill that goes over my backyard. You can't really see any of the neighbors, and then I'm surrounded by trees. So as these trees start to bloom, I won't be able to see anything but trees and woods. And there's a ton of birds. There's a lot of squirrels running around. My dogs kind of enjoyed that, wanting to run after these things, seeing them through the window, which has been funny. We didn't have that in Arizona. We had some rabbits, but you had to be out walking to see them. It's not like they were running through your backyard. So we've got that. We had some deer run through the back, and we're just back in Minnesota, and it's snowing. And it brings me to the whole idea of consciousness and free will thinking, and something that I love beating up this thought because of how much of my thoughts are my thoughts. I think that movement and changing environments has allowed me to create art from different angles, right? And I think that one of the things that I used to feel rather insecure talking about or thinking about was stereotypes. when I was younger, because I feel like it might have a negative connotation to stereotypes of this is what people in the South are like, this is what people in the Midwest are like, this is what people out West or out East are like. Stereotypes are real, and I've recognized them and I've experienced them just on my walks over the last 2 days here in the neighborhood in Minnesota. I can't think of a car that hasn't waved at me. And that's Minnesota nice. That's what Minnesota is known for, is the Minnesota nice politeness. And so you have to think, does consciousness form off of the environment, but in this environment, not we're zooming out of the TV or the music or making your bed. So zoom out of the homes and zoom into nature. Does consciousness evolve based off of the nature or the natural scene in which it's living in, right? So if you're in Santa Fe, you see all these Adobe style homes and it's sort of a colder desert. It's not an Arizona, Phoenix desert where it's hot year round. There's snow. Now you get that up in Flagstaff a little bit, but Santa Fe has a flavor to it. It's got the Adobe creative melting pot, artistic. It's quieter in New Mexico, the land of enchantment. It's not as entertainment driven as a Phoenix or the surrounding cities of Phoenix. Around Phoenix, there's tons of suburbs. There's a high density of people packed into the spot. When you go to Santa Fe, it's north of Albuquerque. Albuquerque's obviously a major city, but it's north of there, but significantly north of there, an hour or so north. And it's this beautiful little cute, clean town with tons of adobe structures, tons of history. The oldest house in the country is in Santa Fe. I think it's over 1,000 years old. You can walk through it. It's right next to the San Miguel. Is that what it is? Church that was built around that time too. It's a cool experience to see all that. And then you can come all the way up through the country. You go through the Colorado Mountains, and all of a sudden you get through that Continental Divide. You get through that area, you go through those mountains, and then you start heading east in that western split. It's like you're all in mountainous areas for hours, and then boom, you're in just flatland. And you get into the Midwest, and it gets way flatter, and it's just not as diverse in that sense. But then when you get up to these northern states in Minnesota, it's quiet, it's clean, it's quiet, it's snowing, there's water all over the place. It seems like there's a little bit less people, a little bit less spread out, there's less things going on, there's not massive events coming through. It seems like everybody who's here is from here. People aren't flying in to work a few months and then leaving. It just seems a little bit different. I notice, I can't put words to what I notice. I feel change. I just notice the change in my thoughts. And even comparable to when you're in major cities like in New York or San Francisco, just your heart rate in general. When I lived in Russian Hill, San Francisco, I would come out of my house and I was on right next to Lombard Street, which is a famous street out there. It's the famous winding street. I mean, you can go down it and drive your car down on it or walk down it. It's really cool. But there's every single day of the week, there's tourists taking pictures of themselves on that street. That was right outside my house. So if I turned right to go find my car where I parked, I was going through a wide range of tourists and people from all over the world who were going there. Further down the street, down the hilly roads, it's all hills in San Francisco, which is where the trolley made so much sense to pull you up and down those hills. You could see Alcatraz, and that was to my right. Right away, every morning when I woke up, I could see both of those. To my left, I saw Golden Gate Bridge, which is a world iconic bridge. And I would walk down these hills and I would sweat all the time because of how stressful it was to walk up and down these hills to get coffee. And there was so many people and cars and tourists and massive iconic structures like I just mentioned, and famous roads and museums and art everywhere, and it's a very liberal part of the world. And that environment I thoroughly enjoyed as well, and I loved it, but the heart rate is definitely elevated chronically in comparison to where I'm sitting right now in a cabin watching snowfall. And my heart rate is so low, it's almost like my thoughts are still. My thinking is clear. And I don't, I'm trying to fill this conversation with thoughts, and that's the point and the exercise of why I enjoy doing this. But it almost makes me not want to do that, right? It makes me want to just sit here and drink tea and look at the snow and have a crackling fire next to me, which is what we had on Sunday. And so what's the benefit of all these things? Because if I were to live, I've lived here a lot, and I've lived in the winter, and I don't like the winter for 7 months straight, for 6 months straight. I don't enjoy it every day. December, January, and February. I enjoy it for the 2 weeks that I'll be here right now, and then watch spring evolve. I enjoy it right now because I haven't had coffee or tea as I watch snowfall next to a fire. And it makes me consider all the things that we do, unconscious or conscious, in so many different forms of thought. Why is it that we go on vacations? Why is it that we go on retreats? Why is it that we get recovery modalities? Why is it that we go stress at work? Why is it that we raise children and have families? Why do we do all these things where we're completely immersed into a thing, and then we step out of that thing to recharge, and then we come back into that thing? And that's where nature just, it continues. It goes back to that proverb: the mountains are for the mind, the waters for the body, and the deserts for the soul. The dryness of the desert, you start to become so soulful. And I think that that's just because we are nature. We're connected to nature. We're all these things. The vastness of being human is all seen in the world around us. So I find a lot of value in being able to be that person who can wear the flat bill hat, have the, shout out Taylor and Stitch, I think it is, San Francisco clothing brand, love their stuff. Wear their gear, wear the attire, connect with the liberal community, and be in a concrete jungle with iconic features all around you and tourists from all over the world, and the constant excitement 24/7, Monday through Sunday, of downtown San Francisco. And then be able to change shape and go be in the desert and wear some beaded necklaces, have a rainmaker, and never wear your shoes unless you're out on a hike, of course, and you wear some nice hiking shoes, especially be aware of snakes, certain desert creatures. But you're more in that desert staring at mountains and cactus, and you feel more contemplative. You feel more, you do have like a constant energy. You do feel like you constantly need to be outside, which I think is served in duality as well. It's both good and bad. But the point is, you still feel that because it's always sunny, and you feel like you should always be moving. But then the air is coupled with dust, and you feel that as well. And you're breathing. I always struggle breathing when I first get to Arizona. And then you get to the Midwest, and there's such complexity with the amount of trees that are around everywhere. There's ponds and lakes and little creeks everywhere. You see water everywhere. And the pace is a little bit quieter. The people are a little bit quieter. It's not as intense as living in San Francisco or Scottsdale, or being in LA or San Diego, being in New York. So much goes on in San Francisco, in LA, in those spots. I mean, every time I'm in LA, you're with celebrities, and you're with people who have run multi-million dollar businesses, and actors and professional athletes and entrepreneurs and directors of, it's just, you're so many creative people that just being in the environment alone, you just sit down a lot, or you meet one person, they introduce you to another person. You're just always on that sort of hustle. Then you come out here, and I've been in Minnesota for 3 days. I've been invited to 4 or 5 different saunas already. I'll go to the first one tomorrow, right down the street, with a friend of mine. I had to turn down one the other night at a friend of mine. And then I got a few. I'll go hang out with some buddies this weekend who all have saunas. But it's like you're back in Finland. Everyone's got saunas, and everyone's wants a sauna. Everyone wants to have a coffee, sit down, relax. And you just instantly feel that slowness. And so if I study that in a psychological human behavior way, how can I be all those things? And I think there's a lot of value to that. I think it's stressful, and I think it's difficult. But I think there's a lot of value to be able to wear multiple hats, and it's a challenging position. When I first went to San Francisco, I spent 4 years there. When I first moved there, I really struggled with it. I did not want to live there. In fact, I felt like not pursuing the job I was on in San Francisco because I could not stand the speed of San Fran, and I didn't like as much diversity in it. It was too overwhelming to me. The liberal side of it was too much. There was too many, there's too much. It was just too much. And as the months went on, it was really taking a toll on me. But I had lived in Minnesota. I'd lived next to a lake with very few people around me, and all winter we're not, it's very quiet. Everything dies every winter, and you have some energy in the summer for sure, but it's just a lot slower and quieter. People are out just ice fishing for hours, not going anywhere, not trying to meet anybody, not trying to do anything special. You're just sitting there. I wrote my last book. I wrote both my books in Minnesota. So, I mean, over the whatever the 4 year span of writing, I just wrote that because it was easy to be inside during the winters and look out your window and write. That was just a lot easier to do. And sometimes you don't feel that in certain pockets. But I think the value of it is that we can be all those. We can be a quiet, stoic, calm, philosophical thinking person. We can be a hustle, networking, selling person. We can be a high energy, artistic, expressive, taking a chance on yourself, big city style, New York, LA style person. We can be a low frequency, a quieter frequency, artistic expression in Santa Fe. We can be a historian. We can be into physiology. We can be a bodybuilder. We can be into strength. We can be into psychology. I just think that we're all those things. And I think that all those things are accumulating themselves even more in the modern landscape because of AI, in the situation of things now like ChatGPT and Grok. I think that's how you say it. I'm new to Grok. I haven't used ChatGPT that much either. I'm starting to use them a lot. I really enjoy them. I saw them about a year ago. People I would work with would use them and really found a bunch of benefit in it. I was kind of out on it at first, like all things, right? It was changing, and it seemed like easier way outs to me to use such AI. But yeah, I find a ton of benefit in it, and I think that AI is a valuable resource for us. I mean, it's not going to go anywhere, and we've made it. So we've made AI robotic type species that are entirely logical. It's all logical, non-emotional, non-reactive approaches to solving problems. So in theory, that should be one of the greatest advancements in our time, and we're in it right now. And I don't know if AI is going to uh is discriminate the right word? I don't think they're going to be I don't think AI is as biased to nature like I'm talking about. I don't think AI thinks differently when you're in the Midwest or the West or the Northwest or the East or the South. I don't think it thinks differently based off of nature. I do think that we think differently based off of nature and environments because of our soulful connection, our human expression. Our sensory input is triggered from the things going on around us. So I do think that we go to Cabo, Mexico, if we live in the north for a week-long vacation because our body needs that recharge because hasn't seen as much sun in the north. It's been so cold. You're more sluggish. You don't have as much energy. You sleep more, you eat more. So to go fuel up on vitamin D and water and energy, you just get that spark if you can do that. And I think that's why people just naturally gravitate to vacations that are warm when you're from northern states of certain parts of the world. And obviously this is all commercialized and advertised as certain scenarios, but I just think it's biological. I think it's unconscious. I think we just unconsciously are triggered to do certain things like that. And it changes thoughts. So based off of where you're at. But with AI is not changing thoughts based off of nature. AI is just AI. And what makes that fascinating is that the difference is you can talk to these things like it's another person. You can talk to this robot it doesn't like being called a robot. I've learned that as well. But you can just have a conversation with it. and you feel like you're texting a friend. But the one thing that it doesn't have is it doesn't have the human duality. It's not trapped in paradox like we are. We're trapped in paradox, good and bad. We experience joy and we experience pain and suffering. And that's the contract of the human emotion. So we can hug someone and cry and feel love and connection. We can hug someone, feel suffering and cry in the same boat. But the point is we need to hug each other. We need to connect. We need to feel each other. And we're this massive diverse melting pot of species that have emotion, and we're not logical. And that's where AI becomes really fascinating to me. Is like, can we use that to be our rationale? But does that take away our wisdom? Does that take away our need to know knowledge? Because now all of a sudden all the rational, logical information that you would need to make decision making off of the information that you have is right in front of you through AI. And that's what life is, right? We make decisions of the future that we don't know is going to happen. We have to be uncertain about the future, but we make decisions based off of the information that we have right now currently. And what makes the paradox to the positive of AI, what makes the paradox to it somewhat fearful and nerve wracking is, does that take that away from us? Does that take away the experience that we acquire or the knowledge that we acquire through our own collection of information? And for my own collection of information, I've found that living in different parts of the world, different parts of the country, sorry, living, it should be different parts of the world. I hope to live over in Europe here in the next couple of years. My wife and I talk a lot about that. But I think that living in different parts of the country has made me a better problem solver and a better decision maker because I've been able to gather so much data from different thoughts, different patterns of thinking. I've been able to see different cultures and not just see them on the week-long vacation, like I just mentioned from the Cabo thing. I've been able to feel the culture, experience it firsthand, and I've had to form into the culture and become the culture, and I conform to it naturally. So that's one of the things that sticks out to me. I've learned how to be a cowboy living in the West. I've learned how to be a Northern Cali guy living in Northern California. I've learned how to be a beach goer at the tiki bars in Florida. I've learned how to be a Midwestern cowboy in Kansas and live in the middle part of the country. I've learned the mountain man status of the Montanas and to live up there. I've done the thoroughbred footballer, cornfield, gritty Ohioan guy. I've been the Motor City mechanical Detroit guy. I've been the brat, fun-loving Wisconsinite. And I've been the lumberjack from Minnesota, the sauna Scandinavian lifestyle in the frigid 10,000 lakes. I've been those people, and I've learned so much from those people. And I say those people as me being those people because those have all been different people. And one of the things that I've realized from all of those people that I've played and all of those characters that I've played with the people that I've been around, the characters that I've met, is that the one holding true thing is that we all connect and it's the same true value system in all the different environments. Even when I have traveled around the world, even if you can't speak the same language. I mean, I've had multiple friends who I don't speak the same language as, and I've hung out with them. When I was in the Dominican Republic, I went to dinner with two of my guys. I'm trying to think where we went, but I was with Yovera as a stud. I don't know where he's at now. Where's Yovi at? I'm not sure. I'm talking to Yovi in a minute, but he was we didn't speak. They didn't speak any English. They didn't speak barely any English, and we would hang out. We hung out for a week. We went to dinner all the time. They took care of me. They showed me around, took me to some cities in the Dominican. And then Saul actually ended up another friend of mine who was bilingual. He took me up to the capital, and that was a lot different experience because he did speak Spanish and English, so he was able to take me deeper into the culture in the DR. But yeah, I was still able to connect with people and not speak the same language as them. And I think that's all just driven through just our natural soulful connection of needing to be connected species, and we can have compassion, empathy for the human spirit. But I don't know where we're at with the human information and the human rationale. I don't know if we handed that over to AI. I don't know if we're supposed to. I don't know if maybe we are. Maybe we're supposed to. Maybe we're not. I'm not sure. But I think we're all these things. I think we're all the parts of nature. And I think that as you hear me speak, you should start thinking, I shouldn't say you should as if it's my direction. A suggestion would be to think about how you think in different pockets of the world and where you've lived or where you've moved or things that you've had to conform to or change to or what you've experienced from them. Because one of the things I've largely found out is that's not what you think it is when you move to different places. It all becomes the same. I ended up falling in love with San Francisco, but I did not like it at all when I first got there. And there's something to that metaphor with the human experience because so often when we meet people initially, we meet them in the form of judgment. And our judgment towards other people is through our own insecurity. And so when we're insecure in foreign lands, we judge the other party, which is what I, which is what makes such disconnect. But then ultimately, you get more and more comfortable being at a place. You become less and less insecure. Your insecurity, as that minimizes, there's really no reason to judge because you've lost your sense of insecurity. And then once you become secure in yourself, you just see people in the environment for what it is, and you end up connecting with them. And then 4 years later, San Francisco is one of the coolest places I've ever lived. And I'm very grateful that I was able to live there. And I met some amazing people and some amazing places. And it taught me a ton about life. And it really helped me grow in my awareness. And so being back in Minnesota, one of the reasons why I came back to Minnesota is the same thing. Minnesota was a massive launching pad for me in my life. 10 years ago, I came here and when I didn't know where to go. And so I came here again 10 years later where I didn't know where to go. And it's more so because of the comfortability that I find here with people. And there's a lot of people who support you here. There's a lot of people who are just very kind, gentle-hearted humans. It's a very clean, like I said, it's very clean. It's very rooted in nature. And there is a lot happening here in the summer, but the kindness and the love and the easiness of it helps me think. And so I wanted to come back here to think again and to be able to launch from from new ideas because I've kind of gone out in the world and lived in different pockets. And then I wanted to bring all the new me back to this foundation that I found in Minnesota and be able to have these new ideas from a place of love and security and comfortability and nature and see where that takes me. And I've always found Minnesota to be a great place for that. So I think that's it. I think that's the thoughts. I think I got them out of me. One love to the world, one love to the country, one love to Minnesota. Thanks for having me back. Cheers.